Tolerant is an adjective that means willing to endure others' perhaps bad habits, bad behavior. I'm tolerant of his rudeness. Religious tolerance, of course, is famous. That is, in a pure sense, I tolerate other religions than my own. I tolerate, next word. Torture, noun and verb. Verb is, I guess, more important. He was captured by the enemy and tortured for information, but he did not reveal what he knew. In a looser sense, it's a torture noun. It's a torture to wait for mail, let's say, that you are expecting and that does not arrive. Transaction, a business transaction normally is a deal. Transaction is a nice word for deal. All Latin. Transcribe is to write from one surface to another surface. To transcribe some event, though, becomes to write about it. Okay, transitory, lasting only briefly. Life is transitory. Happiness is transitory. Love is transitory. Pleasure is transitory. Fleeting, passes away quickly. Translucent, admitting light. It's the opposite of opaque, which we had yesterday, I think, or the day before. Opaque, if something is opaque, it does not admit light. If it's translucent, it does. To transmit is to send across. Transcribe by writing, transmit by some other medium. Television transmits some events, sends it across the air. Transparent, one can see through it. Now, something is transparent, glass is transparent perhaps, but his efforts to conceal his true intentions were transparent. That is, we could see through them. To transpose is to put across. Again, the prefix trans means across. Transatlantic, transpacific. To transpose is to move over from one place to another. Transpose, not very used. Traverse is to cross. To traverse the ocean, cross the ocean. Tread is to walk on, maybe softly, maybe in a somewhat almost violent way. Tread on something. To tread on the rights of others is to walk on those rights, violate them. Tremendous just means very impressive. Trespass as a verb, if I trespass on the property of other people, I walk on it or touch it even without their permission. In the Lord's Prayer, which you should all learn, whether you're Buddhist or nothing, or that is, have no religious attachment, or Christian, you should learn the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses. Our trespasses are our sins, we would say, violations of other people's, or of laws. A trial is a legal procedure or proceeding which tries, T-R-Y, tries me for some crime perhaps. Tribulation, good word to avoid because it's so destroyed by the cliche trials and tribulations. Recognize it, and in fact recognize it as a cliche. I think you know the word cliche. Must know that word. Tribulation, never use trials and tribulations. Never. use tribulations alone, that might be a little impressive. A tribulation is a misfortune, an upheaval in one's life. Tributary. Tributary can be a river, streams that are tributaries to a river which flows into the ocean or the sea. Countries may be tributaries of other countries, if in the past anyway. Korea was a tributary for a while, I think, of China. That is, they had to pay some tribute. Not much used except historically. Trifling, insignificant. Some trifling amount of money. Insignificant. Trite. Cliches are trite. Trite is an adjective, though. Cliché is a noun. If something is trite, that means it's said over and over again, or it's commonplace, lacking originality entirely. Trivial, trifling, insignificant. Triviality. I was shocked by the triviality of his objections, by the triviality of his thinking. He thought on such a low, childish level, or enslaved to the public media, kind of. Tropical, associated really with the South Pacific, tropical island, in the tropics. I'm not sure what the tropics means, but the South Pacific, Tahiti, etc. Truancy. Truancy is the violation of some small rule, especially of punctuality. He was truant too often. That means he skipped school. Because of his truancy, he was expelled or suspended from school. Two different things. To be suspended has to spend some time away from school. Expelled cannot return. Truce, an agreement to cease fighting. North and South Korea never signed a treaty at the end of the war. In 1953, there was a truce and then an armistice. They just agreed to stop fighting. Tumult, upheaval, implying lots of noise too. The Tumult and the Shouting was the title of a famous book 60 years ago. Turmoil, disorder. My stomach is in turmoil. I ate too much or badly. Society is in turmoil. The stock market is in turmoil. Disorder. Twinge. A twinge of conscience. I picked up $1 or manun from the sidewalk. No one saw me, but I looked around with a twinge of conscience. That is, I felt a little guilty. Not a lot. Typical, ordinary, commonplace. The typical American does this or this. The typical Korean does this or this. On a typical day, one does this or this. Tyrant is a man, usually, who has control of some government, usually, without legally and legitimately arriving at that power. Ulcer is a sore inside, usually a stomach ulcer, a sore that is agitated and exacerbated by some kinds of food, so that the person who has an ulcer, a stomach ulcer, must follow a diet and so forth. Unabridged. To abridge something is to shorten something. And so the dictionaries love to say that their dictionaries are unabridged, not shortened. I'm never sure what that means, and what they mean is just a sales kind of word, I think. Presumably it means that they even include obscenities, some Latinisms and foreign language isms, not shortened. the unabridged version of a movie, uncensored, unanimous, of one soul, of one mind. The vote was unanimous. War, or the vote was unanimous. Let's go on strike or something. Unceasing, a better word really is incessant. I think maybe we had it though. Incessant, unceasing, never stopping. To cease is to stop. Good word. To undo his mischief undoes, or undid, let's use the past, our efforts that had cost us days. That is, not destroyed, but undid, almost destroyed what it took us a long time to do. Unicorn, mythical animal with one horn, interesting in Christian culture, legend, symbol of purity, but violence too. Unique, one of a kind, good word, don't overuse it. And we should not say very unique. A thing is either unique or not unique. A person too. Very unique, impossible. Unkempt, my hair perhaps, not combed. Generally it means disorderly, but strictly speaking it means not combed. Untimely, happening at the wrong time. His return home was untimely. The storm is untimely. A comment is untimely. Happening at the wrong time. Bad timing. Upright, like erect, standing upright. Man, homo erectus, stands upright. Urban, opposite of rural, we've had urban having to do with city. Urban culture, urban society. An urbanite, I-T-E, is a person who is a city dweller. To urge, noun also. I urge you to study hard. Dr. Shin urges you to review your vocabulary words, not just study them once, but return to them constantly. Noun, at the urge of someone, he decided to run for office. At the urging would be better. Better. He had an urge, we say in American culture, to eat chocolate or something. An impulse. Urgent. Urgent is a little different. An urgency is the noun. An urgent telephone call, emergency. The situation is urgent. We must act now. Almost emergency. Utilitarian. Having use. It's a branch of, it's a school of philosophy, and probably that's all. Utilitarians, Jeremy Bentham, and British, only the Brits. Utility, usefulness. Can beautiful things have utility, or must they just be aesthetically pleasing and not have utility, usefulness? To utilize, to use. Not, even words, anything, to use. Vacant, empty. A vacant lot has no building on it. A vacant stare into nothingness, dreamy, apparently thinking of nothing. Vacuous, empty-headed, silly. Vacuous conversation, a vacuous person even. Doesn't think about things. Vagrant. A vagrant is a person who is homeless and wanders around. That's the root. All Latin. Every word on this page, I would say, do is, as in undo, maybe not. Twinge, no. Everything else on this page is Latinate. It's amazing, isn't it? That's why I urge, as an aside, that's why I urge serious students especially to take Latin when they go to the States and go to schools. And they will say, but I can't use it. Well, you're not going to use your 1 or 2 years of French or your 1 or 2 years of Spanish either. I mean, high school language is at best a preparation for college if one cares about learning the language, and most people don't. They take 1, 2, 3, or 4 years of the language, drop it, and then remember 3 words in 10 years. It's of no practical value really, except in its impact on English. And the language which has the greatest impact on English is Latin. Boom. Okay. Vague. Keyword. Not clear. 2 words that Korean people should use more often. Vague and obvious. Vague. Unclear. Vain. If I am vain, I care a lot about my looks. I look at myself in the mirror a lot, and I want people to look at me. I'm concerned about my physical appearance and admire it. Not just concerned, but admire. If I'm vain about my knowledge or my any quality I have, I'm, as kids say, conceited. I have a high opinion of myself. If I do something in vain, it's pointless, it had no utility, his efforts were vain in that sense, or in vain probably better, having no fruit, bearing no fruit. A valet is a servant, especially one who occupies himself with one's person, that is, helps me dress or shines my shoes or something like that. Only the very rich have valets. Valiant, courageous, a valiant hero, also a valiant effort. He made a valiant effort that showed a lot of heart and courage. Van, of course, car, van, I notice more and more Koreans like them. That is, a van holds many people, 6, 7 people. But in the Shakespearean use, in the van of something is in the back, following some movement. Or an army invades a country, and in the van come other people who live by means of the army, that is, provide them food or other services. Vanity, the noun form of vain. Vanity, caring too much, having too high an opinion of oneself. The word actually means emptiness. And so we have Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament with Koheleth as the author's name, who says, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. Meaning everything that we do has no purpose or meaning at all. Very pessimistic. Vanquish is to conquer. He vanquished, Napoleon vanquished the countries of Europe. Variable, changing. The weather is variable. Some days it is constant. The opposite of variable is constant or consistent. Variety, good, not the same. That is, having or showing various, the adjective, qualities or things. The variety of products found in some market is astonishing, meaning there are so many different things. Vast, a vast selection of things, huge. Vast in space, vast in number. Vault, various meanings. A vault architecturally is the roof of the vault of a, especially a Romanesque or Gothic church, is the ceiling. A savings vault is a heavy iron thing in which one keeps one's money or valuables. Vegetarian is a person who only eats vegetation. The real point is, though, will not eat meat. Some vegetarians eat fish. Vehicle. A vehicle is the car or truck or van that carries one from point A to point B. The word vehicle is used in translation about Buddhism. There's the Hinayana and Mahayana Buddhists, and the Hinayana Buddhists in the south use the Tipitaka, which is the little vehicle, and the Mahayana use the big vehicle. One reads. I don't know if Korean Buddhism uses those terms. Vengeful, wants revenge. Vindictive is the really good word, and there it is down below. Vengeful, vindictive. A vengeful person wants revenge. A vindictive person always wants revenge. Verbalize is to put into words. He should learn to verbalize his feelings. He would feel better. Maybe. Verbose, using too many words. Talking and talking and talking. Now, an essay can even be verbose. That is too many words. Verdant, green, usually in spring, when the woods and fields are verdant, everything is green. Vertical, standing upright. Horizontal, that way. Veterinarian is a doctor who takes care of animals. Good profession to get into. I tell the students who might not make it to med school, but still would love to do medicine, let's say, and love animals. Veterinarian, good thing. Veto, noun or verb. The American president has the power to veto any law that Congress passes. On the other hand, Congress can override, seems to me we had that word, override his veto with a combined 2/3 vote. The presidential veto, noun, is a powerful tool for the president. Viable, able to live or able to move. In any case, a viable solution might work. That's the point. A viable option, an option that might work. Vice versa, let's see now. He gave her money and vice versa. She gave him money. That is, and the same in reverse. To vie, good word. To vie with someone is to compete with someone. Good. Vigilant, watchful, always watchful. The troops at the DMZ are very vigilant, or should be, and I assume are. Must be watchful and alert for danger. A vignette is a small skit, French word. I haven't heard that for years. A small skit that shows something. Vigorous, having a lot of energy. A vigorous person has a lot of energy. He made vigorous efforts, we say. The efforts have a lot of energy. Excuse me. Vile, disgusting, loathsome. Some substances seem vile. Some people seem vile. Vindication, justification. He was vindicated. This notice very different from vindictive. He was vindicated when it turned out that everything he said was going to happen happened. He was justified. Everyone said, "You were right." That was his vindication. Vindictive, vengeful. Vintage, having to do with the crop, we say, or the harvest of grapes for wine. It was a great vintage in 1990, maybe. Other years have had a poor vintage. harvest. Virtuoso, virtuoso, Italiano. A virtuoso is a person who is very skilled at something, full of virtu, power, manliness, but skill. A virtuoso pianist can do anything on that piano. Virtuous, very different, though the same root. Virtue we use to mean goodness. A virtuous person is good in someone's sense, follows the precepts of some church or moral philosophy. Visage, face. Good. French word visage, face. Vista, like panorama. Panoramic vista. Vista is what you see. Panorama, pan, everywhere. Broad. The vista, it's like the view almost. The vista from some mountain might be great. It's not used much like that though. Vista. View. Vivacious, full of vitality, lively. Good word. Vocal, having to do with the voice. A vocalist is a singer, of course, but a male vocalist, female vocalist, and so forth. But special use, he was very vocal in his opinions. That is, he had opinions and he voiced them. The implication is he talks too much or too loud. He was a vocal opponent of abortion. Talked and talked about it. Vociferous, loud, in a pejorative or contrary sense, that is, not approving. Vociferous, loud. Void. Noun, the void, nothing. Another word for chaos. Discussing that word actually a couple of days ago with a student. In the beginning was chaos. Greek myth says chaos. Koreans use this word too, I know. Chaos and void really have the same meaning, but chaos has come to mean disorder, even loud noise, social chaos, panic almost, huge disorder. Really, it means the same as the void, nothingness, vacuum, nothing. To void a check, if one writes a check, is to cancel that check, to make that check void. Voracious, devouring. We had omnivorous the other day, I know, devouring everything. Voracious, a voracious reader devours whatever he or she can. A voracious eater, of course. Devouring. Vulgar, important word. Common. But that is typical of how a dictionary often will not help a student. That is, the student reads vulgar, common, especially a cheap, small dictionary with only one or two words. And so, yes, let's say, what is common? It's common to, I don't know, drink Pepsi-Cola. Is it vulgar to drink Pepsi-Cola? No. Vulgar means common in a not very admirable sense, of the common people. In other words, educated people don't say or do this. His language was vulgar. His behavior was vulgar. Lacking refinement. Lacking courtesy even. Vulgarity. His vulgarity was shocking. Wade. To wade in the water is to stand in the water, not swim. He waded up to his waist in the East Sea, as we call it. Warp. Well, all the kids know about time warps and all that. The main thing that's warped is wood. Wood, if left untreated, will bend and curve. he has a warped sense of humor means he is amused by some things that other people are not amused by, a little strange, perhaps a little morbid. Warrant. Although the Korean currency is falling, this does not warrant a panic. That is, the fall is not so severe. Warrant means justify. Wavy hair, especially women get perms in order to have wavy hair, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Wavy hair anyway. Welder. A welder is a person who welds. A person who welds joins two metallic objects, melts some solder, I think it's called S-O-L-D-E-R, and the solder then links the two pieces of metal. Wharf is a place on the seaside where boats, yachts, and boats can dock. That's the wharf that juts out into the sea. Stakes piers down into the water, hold it there. Whimsy, related to whimsical. Whimsy, I think it's a noun. I've never used it. I don't think I would. Related to whim and whimsical. To whine, children whine when they are told no. Adults too sometimes. As we say, the N-word, meaning the terrible no word. Oh, come on, can't I do this, can't I do that? Whine. After that comes the pout with the scowl and the sullenness, to use words that we used yesterday. Whirl is to turn around rapidly. The whirling dervishes, an order of Muslims, Sufis, in Turkey especially, but elsewhere too, a wonderful display of religious intensity. Apparently religious intensity, but I believe it. To whirl is to turn around. He whirled around when he heard his name. Turned around quickly. Wily, crafty, cunning. The fox is wily, hard to trick. Withstand, to resist. He couldn't withstand the pressure put upon him to do something, to resist. Wrath, the real name for one of the 7 deadly sins. We must be up to 4 by now, at least. Sometimes substituted by anger, but wrath. Wrath is extreme anger, a pathological anger. The wrath of Achilles is the subject of the Iliad. Anger, or better, wrath. Wreckage, the wreckage of the plane. The experts came and sifted through the wreckage to find whatever they could. Dead bodies, or valuables, or anything that survived. Yield, noun, is most important, I think. He never yielded to the pressure. He withstood the pressure. To yield to something. It can, like most verbs, as you know, VT, VI, huge percentage of American English verbs especially, have both a transitive and intransitive application. One of the great difficulties about learning English, the confusion there. It's a confused language, actually. I sometimes doubt the greatness of the English language, but there we go. And not the English language, the American language, because it's what American culture does to it that I think is not very admirable, but oh well. The yield can even mean the harvest. This is a good word, by the way. The yield that year of rice was huge. Harvest. The point is, VT, this is a good use. The land yielded a large amount of whatever the product or crop was. Yonder means over there. dialect kind of word, kind of nice though. Over yonder, over there. A zealot is a person who is, another word, fanatic. The word has biblical New Testament background. The zealots were a group of Jewish fanatics who actually went around killing Roman soldiers, but then the punishments were terrible for the Jewish people. A zealot, a fanatic, especially in some religious matter. That's all. Okay, Dr. Shin has proposed that we discuss an opera for half an hour. Woo!